Welcome to the Putnam County Board of Commissioners regular meeting and Port Authority meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, and it is 9 o'clock. We call this meeting to order. First, let's have the invocation, please, by Mr. Eddie Stife from Church of the Heights, and then followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Newbold.
Let's bow our heads. Father, we thank you for today, Lord, that you are continue to have your face shine upon this great county. Lord, I pray for this commission and the leaders of our county. Father, I pray that you would continue to give them innovation and insight as they lead this county into the future and lay in the foundation for this generation to lead this great state into the future. Father, I pray a blessing over them. I pray a blessing over this county. Father, I pray that you would just continue to have the blessing and the favor of God to rest on each and every one of them, knowing that all authority is placed by you, and that they've been assigned for this assignment for such a time as this in this great hour. Lord, we thank you. We give you glory today. And we ask that everything that happens here will glorify you, set this county up for the future. And Lord, I declare that the best is yet to come, and it's being grown right now, today, in the people of our great county. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have the approval of the minutes from December 10th and January 14th in front of us today.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve the minutes as stated in our packet.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, we will recess the BOCC and convene the Port Authority meeting. Approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the minutes of the Port Authority regular meeting December 10th and the Port Authority regular meeting January 14th.
Have a proper motion
Second.
and a proper second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, presentation of Port Development Plan. Mr. Sam Sullivan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sam Sullivan, Grants, Projects, Legislative Affairs Coordinator, Port Manager. I'm here before you as my capacity as Port Manager. We have a presentation for you today. I'm going to give you a brief overview and introduce you to our consultants who will be giving the full presentation. Excuse me, I need my lead readers. Back in June of 2022, the state legislature included Port Putnam as one of the ports in the state of Florida. Afterwards, on August of that same year, we were approved as members of the Florida Ports Council. In October of 2022, we were granted a port infrastructure development grant from the Maritime Administration, which is part of the U.S. Department of Transportation. A year later, in October 2023, we obtained permanent membership in the FSTED, which is the Florida Seaport Transportation and Economic Development Council. On January 2024, we selected Burns & McDonnell as our contractor to conduct the PID grant, which is the Port Infrastructure Development Grant. In June of 2024, we have been appropriated funds to construct a bulkhead at our port. In August 2024, we were awarded a security system grant from FSTED. And as of this month, our Port Infrastructure Development grant has been completed, and the presentation is going to be an overview, a 30,000-foot overview of what came of that study. The complete study will be posted later this week. An email will be sent to all of you. Once it's on there, IT will be posting it in the Port Authority section of our website. Before I introduce our speakers, I do have a comment from our federal lobbyist, Josh Gabaton, from the Gabaton Group, who was the spearhead for this whole project several years ago. So bear with me as I read his comments. As some of you may know, as a senior policy advisor to former Congressman John L. Mica and as your federal affairs consultant in Washington, I have been steadfastly working with the Putnam County administration to generate economic growth and develop the infrastructure within the dilapidated Palatka barge port. This process began more than 5 years ago, commencing with an economic development and transportation enhancement symposium which brought together officials and representatives from local, state, and federal agencies such as the Florida Department of Transportation, Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the United States Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration, and the United States Department of Army Corps of Engineers. This event provided was the much-needed springboard for county officials to hear and discuss available economic development opportunities and transportation initiatives that will benefit from the investment and redevelopment of the Palatka barge port. I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank County Administrator Terry Suggs, Commissioner Larry Harvey, and Port Director Sam Sullivan for their support in not only sharing my long-term vision for the barge port, but trusting my initiatives and strategy, which is why the county is in the position to deliver this planning presentation this morning. I look forward to continuing my work with the county, members, and staff of your congressional delegation, including federal and state officials, and bring this project to fruition. Without further ado, let me introduce Scott Tuning and Christopher Martin from Burns and McDonald, who will be presenting the port development project.
Good morning. Let me just open this on this computer. And let me make sure you can see it. Is everybody seeing it on their screens?
Mhm.
Okay, great. So as Sam mentioned, I'm Scott Shooting. This is Chris Martin with Burns McDonald. We were contracted to put together this port development plan. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the plan. It's not a formal presentation. Please, if you have any questions, we have a slide at the end for questions, but if you have something during the presentation, please speak up. You won't throw us off or anything, so help yourselves.
Could you put that closer to you?
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Much better.
Much better.
Sorry. So let me get this to advance. Here we go. So our goal with this plan was to create a, why is my computer doing that? Was to create a flexible living plan that could adapt to the market and anything else that actually occurs. Because obviously right now, this is the early stages of the project. You don't really know everything that's going to actually happen at that port. So we wanted to help with a plan that creates infrastructure that keeps you nimble as things progress.
Can you make this a little bit bigger?
Let me try. Let's see.
Thank you.
Does that work?
That helps.
Not a lot.
Let me try one more thing for you real quick.
There you go.
Maybe I can do it this way because this is not letting me use the PowerPoint, so I've got to
Okay.
kind of improvise. Is that too big?
That's better.
Yeah, I think this will work right there.
Yep.
Let's try it.
Thank you.
Of course. So let me back up. Well, yeah, I'm going to have to do this each time. So just a quick agenda. We've done introductions. We're going to go over the current port's property and its conditions, the study completed for the port development plan, market analysis, just a brief overview there, traffic, and then capital improvement projects, and again, questions at the end, but feel free to chime in if you have anything. So the current property, as you know, is the port proper off of Port Road and Comfort Road. It has the two warehouses in the bulkhead, and then you also have your 16-acre annex site up at the corner. The current conditions of the port, as Sam alluded to, the bulkhead's dilapidated, needs replacement. The dock behind it also needs replacement to basically be able to facilitate anything of heavy cargo. The 16-acre annex site, a lot of debris, existing infrastructure, water, sewer that needs to be rerouted in preparation for any future development. And then you have some abandoned rail that could either be revitalized or extended for future use. So the study basically completed, during the study, we actually completed some various components that will be utilized for future design development, topographic survey of the landward side of the port, geotechnical investigation, which did validate that the bulkhead needs to be replaced. We did some preliminary engineering, looking at a couple of different options for that bulkhead replacement, and then did an environmental matrix to consider what permits would be required. Luckily, for a one-for-one replacement of the bulkhead, there's very minimal environmental impact or environmental permits. However, you're going to see that we proposed in our plan the future expansion of the bulkhead to increase capacity for the port. That would, of course, then require additional permitting. So during the market analysis, we looked at domestic, European, and Caribbean trade, looking at some of the local businesses that might utilize the Black Veritas, Gibson, Beck Auto, and so on. We found as we were progressing through the market analysis, the restriction isn't the businesses or the opportunities that the port has. The restriction is the infrastructure. You have a bunch of businesses that are interested and will utilize the port, but the port just needs to be repaired. So as you'll notice when you review the plan, we propose to implement not just a new bulkhead, but a mobile harbor crane, maybe moving some of the facilities, opening up more laydown space, just to give you, again, that versatility you need to react as businesses become interested in utilizing the port. We also looked at a traffic analysis, and I'm going to let Chris talk about that for a second.
Thank you, Scott. Morning, all. Yeah, part of our investigation included analyzing the transportation infrastructure leading to and from the port, really with a focus on assuring that increased cargo and truck traffic coming into the port may be accommodated by the existing transportation infrastructure. And so the good news is, looking at the turning radii and the overall roadway geometrics at the north and south entrance on Comfort Boulevard, absolutely adequate to support any level of truck traffic anticipated. What you're seeing here on the screen is a heat map of crash data over the past 5 years. Not a tremendous amount of crashes within the immediate port vicinity, but there is a few accidents right there on County Road 216 coming onto Highway 17. That segment, Highway 17 there, is a 4-lane, two-way divided section, and so it's a long turn for truck traffic getting through that intersection, which is likely the cause of the increased accidents at that location. As the port grows and we get more cargo coming in and out, that intersection may be an opportunity for improvement to enhance safety. But overall, the good news is, as we look to improve the port and get more cargo coming in and out, the existing transportation infrastructure is absolutely adequate at this time without the need for major improvements.
All right. So moving into the capital improvements that we're proposing with this plan, as we talked about the bulkhead and dock replacement, starting at the bulkhead and coming back to allow for any tiebacks and other infrastructure, replacing that section of the dock, and then progressing further all the way to Comfort in the future as funds become available, because all of that area needs to be repaired. That's that's part of the dock expansion. The rest of the dock expansion is going to the north, roughly about 450 feet, looking at expanding, again, the capacity of the port, allowing for more cargo, more barge berths. Also, railroad spur extension into the property. We're just basically putting back what was there previously to allow on-dock rail access, which is a huge demand for a lot of folks. And then, power line transitions, trying to put some of that existing infrastructure underground so it's out of the way, and then regrading and compacting in areas, mainly on the 16-acre site, because it's just basically a pile of rubble, and a lot of it, so it just needs to be cleaned up and regraded to allow for future development. And that's leading into the rest of the 16-acre improvements. Right now, there's a rail spur that was there previously. It's not active anymore, obviously, but in the future, we'd like to reactivate that and actually put in 2 spurs to allow for greater transload capacity. Again, another component that markets are looking at for when it comes to site selection is having that capability. And then also keeping that southern portion between the rail spurs and the buildings open for dredge disposal, because as you know, part of increased capacity of the dock is being able to get the larger vessels, so we need to dredge sooner rather than later. So we have to have somewhere to store that dredge material. Hopefully, that dredge material becomes something that you can use and that for future developments or somewhere else in the city. But we've allocated enough space for that as well within the plan. And then I mentioned water and sewer modifications. There's a lot of existing infrastructure there from the prior development, and we don't know where it all goes. So we need to get that basically designated, figured out where it is, and then get it relocated to the perimeter. That way it opens it up for future development. And that is our whole presentation. Again, the complete study will be available, as Sam mentioned, on the port's website. But with that, do you have any questions for us?
Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I have great hopes for Port Putnam and what that's going to become. I like the idea. I've always had in mind the conversation needs to happen with Veritas Steel about trying to move some of those southern facilities they have to the north. The Putnam County Economic Development Council owns some property to the north of their place. Some of it's wetlands, but it could possibly be a trade-off, if you will, solve our problem and their problem at the same time. So I really like that idea. I love the idea of the 2 rail spurs, because that means we could hold our own in there until CSX comes in and picks it up and takes it out.
Exactly.
And you're right, there used to be one there and there isn't one. But I think with just a little bit of work, we can make that happen. And finally, years ago, the former board invested a lot of money on buying that old Georgia Pacific property for the use of economic development, if you will, and port expansion. And we went around making a lot of promises to people who were funding partners that we're going to leave some of that area open for that reason, for the laydown yard and things. So I think it's very important that we look at the long term here and see what the port can become. When the Outer Beltway is done, you're, I think, 17 minutes from the Outer Beltway at that point. And the river used to be the channel years ago for commerce. And now, being that Putnam is the furthest inland port in Florida, and Sam, you had a big push on that. And I don't ever want to, you deserve the props for making that happen. You went to those meetings and sat there. And so did our legislator, Bobby Payne, and Travis Hudson at the time, and our new ones are picking up the torch with it too. But this is going to be big for Putnam County. This will be huge. And you already saw even Beck's Auto Group, they want to start shipping things out by barge, and there might be some crumbs from Jacksport, if you will. And those crumbs are a lot of money to us. So, I don't want to make it minute. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. I was just on the radio this morning talking about the Port Putnam and the contest that's going on. And there's people go, "You got a port in Palatka?" Yeah, we really do. But we're excited about that. But we invested a lot of money to buy that property in hopes that the future will come. And that's kind of the hardest thing for rural counties to do, is buy it and hope they come. But if we don't have it, they won't come. And we know that. So we appreciate all your help on that. I appreciate your presentation. And I look forward to 10 years down the road what we're going to look like then. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's my comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Palacier.
I, too, with Commissioner Harvey, applaud your work there. I'm excited about our port. I took a tour last week, and the concept I had in my brain was totally different what I saw before my eyes. I see huge amounts of positive growth for Putnam there. Just a really good thing that we have, and our predecessors did the right thing in buying that, and I think us looking into acquiring more land out there is definitely going to be a plus on our side for just positive growth coming in from everywhere. I think there's several interested parties already in places on our port, and this is going to be a really big thing. One thing I didn't hear you mention, and it may be already be in place, and it may not be your part to even look into this, but three-phase power, is that out there? Is that accessible?
It is. We did look at it because Veritas has access to it as well. It's up near the Bend and Comfort near the annex site, so there is access there. Now, I don't know if it extends all the way down to the port. I don't believe it does just yet, but it is up in that northern edge.
If it's there, I'm sure they can bring it to us. But Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Alexander.
I want to thank you guys for coming down and presenting to us today. That's really great. We're very excited about it. And Sam, you've done a great job, man. I'm new to all this, and I'm just learning. Can you go back in your slides a couple of spaces and where it shows the outline of what what property the county actually owns?
Are you thinking this one?
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Okay, let me just move it down for you a little bit.
Yeah.
Why is it not moving? It locked up, of course.
Of course. Well, we can see what I need to see there.
Okay.
And the upper right-hand side of your slide, there's some green space. I'm assuming that's wetlands. Now, does the county own that, or is that Veritas, or?
Well, so that's not wetlands, it's trees. We've not done a delineation to confirm the limits of the wetlands. We just picked up, it's a very wooded area. And obviously some of it is wetlands, but that's Veritas property.
That is Veritas property.
Yes, sir.
All right, I was just looking at that in consideration of potentially purchasing some mitigation credits and depositing the dredge material there to give us additional workable water frontage.
I'm not sure if we could use it for dredge disposal because the dredge disposal has to go outside the river limits and it cannot drain directly back into the river. It's a requirement by the court, it has to drain where it sits, and that water has to go through treatment before it leaves. So that's why they have to carry as far inland as they can to allow it that drying. So they're going, unfortunately, that close to the river wouldn't be permitted.
Okay, so it would have to settle, dewater, and then it could
Yes,
be
sir.
reused, or how does that?
Yes, if deemed, it has to be tested to make sure that there's no contaminants, of course. You want to have it tested to make sure that it has any structural integrity, so maybe you can use it for any projects, for infrastructure, and then it can be reused.
Okay,
And we have no idea what's there right now because there's not been any testing done on what's in the water.
absolutely. Okay, well, great information, man. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Newbold.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. It's, get a question once in a while on it. It'd be nice to be able to speak a little more intelligently. You mentioned all the landward side studies. The depth of the area on water side, will there be a need for additional preparations there as we look towards actual traffic?
So right now, based on NOAA's data for what we have in the river, we got about 6 foot to work with, which you can bring in smaller barges with that and not having to be bottoming out. So that's something that can, so once the bulkhead's in place, you can start using the ports, what I'm trying to get through there.
Okay.
With the dredging project that the Corps is permitting, you're going to go down to 15 feet. That opens the door for a lot larger vessels and a lot more opportunity. And that's coming. It's already been approved, it's moving forward, so that will happen. We'll know the exact limits of the dredging and exact limits of where we need to do any preparation with the design of the bulkhead because we have to do water soundings to figure out what the depth is at that time. But right now, just based on the data that we have, it's about 6 feet, and that's where it stands. And does that answer your question?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Alexander.
Quick question, the Shands Bridge, do you guys know how far along they are with replacing that?
Actually, we're going out there right after this to take a look and see how it's progressing. But it's from what I understand, it's moving along and it's on schedule.
Okay,
And the
so
scheduled date is 2030.
Thank you.
2030? So
That's
we
what I
won't
read.
actually be able to receive any large cargo until that is completed.
Depending on the type of vessel that's coming through, because you're right, for the large ones, absolutely. But there are some larger ones that can actually still get through there or go in different other directions. So and definitely barges, obviously, you'll be able to get that traffic as well.
The lower part, yeah, the larger ocean-going vessels, I think they
Yeah,
require
exactly.
43 feet?
43.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming today. I think this has been very informational for everybody. I have one question regarding, and I know you don't want to probably box yourself into a timeline, but can you give us an idea of when you expect to hopefully maybe start the dredging project, how long that project will, just give us a little bit of a timeline of what you're looking at.
Honestly, with the dredging part, it's up to Congress, and I hate to even guess at this point with the new administration, just to be honest. I know there's a push to continue that work.
Okay.
And continue the studies that are required and all the surveys and so on. But at this point, with everything that's going, I'd hate to even give you a timeline because who knows?
Okay,
So
all right.
I apologize.
That's okay. Mr. Sullivan, it looks like you have something to say.
Oh, sorry. That's all right.
Addressing that dredging question, Chairman, we are currently in a feasibility study under the WRDA bill, which is the Water Resource Development Act in Congress. We have been approved in the past this fall. I am cautiously optimistic that during our next face-to-face meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers leadership, that we can transition from a feasibility status with all the feasibility studies we've already conducted and possibly get us to a funding consideration level, which could accelerate the process. However, it's the Corps They're not very fast. But I'm cautiously optimistic that if everything falls our way and we get the support that we need from U.S. representative and U.S. senators, that we could possibly have the dredging coincide or shortly follow the raising of the Shands Bridge in 2030.
Okay, so you don't think that we would have any dredging projects before 2030?
We might. It's 2025. It's 5 years. That's, from my research, that's a pretty tight thing. It's going to depend on how things go with the core leadership and how much support we get from our federal representatives.
In the same way with the repair of the bulk?
The repair on the bulkhead is going to be going a lot sooner.
Okay.
My estimates are based on, depending on what the environmentals and all that take place, end of construction could be 2 years from now.
Okay.
So
Thank
at
you.
that time, we could take.
Yeah, just trying to
shot
get an idea of what we're looking at. Administrator Suggs. Put your mic on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologize for that. Follow up a couple things. One is Mr. Gaviton couldn't be here today because he's actually in D.C. with the session beginning this week, so he's up there. He has been very instrumental in getting us to where we are today. I had to follow Mr. Gaviton last week, and we have a Zoom call we're trying to get scheduled for later in the next few days, hopefully, if his schedule will permit, to have further conversations about the water project and the award of the project. As Mr. Sullivan alluded to, it's been approved at both the House and the Senate side, so our project is included. We're hoping that with the relationship that we currently have with the Army Corps, because this isn't our project, it's actually our second project with the Army Corps. And we just finishing up our environmental study on the second project. So we have a $30 million grant through them already for some potable water. So our reputation and our meeting with the Army Corps has been going really well. So we're hoping that that will continue on through the barge port project itself, not take as long as we may think it may take. So that's all positive, and I think Mr. Gaviton's working on that now. So when opportunity presents itself, we'll meet with the Army Corps in D.C. again to do that. Also, just want to point out, we talked the commissioners talked a little bit this morning about potential businesses as well as our consultants. And by the way, thank you, and you did a phenomenal job on the plan itself, and thank you, Sam. But we got companies that are already established and ready to go. Veritas Steel has expressed great desire to get that port up and moving as quickly as we can so they can expand. You got Beck Automotive in the Caribbean opportunities with automotive parts and things of that nature, so they're ready to go. And one of our dearest neighbors is Certainty. And so, they just did $235 million upgrades to their facility to double their output of gypsum board. And so the materials that would be coming down via truck from Jacksonville would then be coming via barge to the port. So I think all those are extremely positive things to remember. And I think Commissioner Harvey said it best, that we spent some money on some property out there to give us more options available, and we need to look at other options as well. And so I think it's extremely positive for what we're doing out there. Apologize, I got a little bit of a cold this morning. But I do want us to remember that, this has taken us a while to get here, but things are falling into place. The raising of the Shands Bridge was what was the catalyst for this. Give Congressman Yoho the credit for that, for getting that started. So we may be looking at 2030 as far as getting the bridge completed, but I also would cautiously remind us all that when Seminole Power and GP was going through their upgrades, we actually brought stuff in through the port then. So we can get some materials in and out of there now. And when Mr. Sullivan gets the bulkhead in the dockage facility upgraded, I think it hasn't been upgraded since the 60s. So once we get that, we'll have more ability to bring other things in as well. And then as we grow and the bridge raises, we'll have opportunity to bring bigger vessels in, but we can still bring some stuff in now.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to have these good working relationships with other agencies throughout the state and at the federal level. Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two questions, really. One, Sam, some of the new members might not know where the dredging is going to happen, and the public hears dredging, and they might go, "Oh, we don't want our river dredged." we're not dredging the river. So would you explain it's really going to come out of the north area? It's not going to come from the south. We're going to dredge from the river channel. So if you kind of explain that, I would appreciate it.
Well, the plan, the latest plan, when we're in conversation with the Corps, is to actually remove silt that's accumulated during, storms and other inclement weathers and, basically, and it would go from the port kind of northward towards the Rice Creek and then join in on the federal waterway. We're not going to be dredging a big swath from the port out to the federal waterway, a big mile swath. We're going to be removing basically silt, that accumulated silt, to restore navigable channel to 15 feet, which is the depth of the federal waterway in the St. Johns River.
Good, thank you. And one more question. The life of the bulkhead, when we get the new bulkhead in, I'm sure it's going to be deeper than the current bulkhead, no doubt about that. But what do you foresee the life of that bulkhead being? Because we're fixing to make an investment, and so is the federal government here.
Minimum of 50 years, but with the little TLC, much more than that.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Certainly.
Great questions.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Commissioner Alexander, are you okay? Commissioner Alexander.
Hey, Sam, how closely will that come to the spray field from GP's effluent?
The dredging,
Yes.
that would be in consideration. Like I said, the final exact route has not been, but that pipe will definitely be in consideration, and it will be they would avoid it, of course. I don't have an exact measurement, sir.
Yeah, I just didn't know where the dredging was going to take place, if it would be around, because the spray field is right in that area where you're talking about.
Right.
in the
Well,
channel.
the spray field is certain distance from the shore, but that's kind of adjacent to where the turnaround basin is, and the dredging would be afterwards. So we should be okay. But that will definitely be a consideration before the operations take place.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it. All right, moving on to the next item, a lease of southern section of Port Annex. This was approved at the, I think it's December 10th meeting, unanimously by this board, and this language is back in front of us because Commissioner Alexander at the last meeting wanted to change the term, and so that's what's in front of us today. Does anybody is there a presentation to make, or that, I just said it? Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to support this item and approve the lease.
Excuse me, I have a few questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have my light on, but before we move forward with this and take a vote on it, I just want to make sure this is the best use of our property, and we are capitalizing on the maximum value, because during the presentation by the engineering group there, they said the actual goal of this port was to generate and maximize the revenue of the property that we have. So I wanted to make sure that we had engaged all interested parties in this property before we approved the lease. Was there anybody else interested in it?
There's not another lease package there's not another lease agreement that I know of that we have in our package.
Understand it. Okay, I just want to see if there was anything else available, or if we did explore all options before we voted on this.
Well, typically what happens what happens is somebody brings a lease agreement to us, and then it gets presented to the board. If you go back and you look historically at how we got to this point, and I had to do some research myself,
Yes, ma'am.
Victoria Marine and the National Industrial Services was presented to the board. You weren't on here at the time. In July of 2024, and it was approved for Victoria Marine, which is a local existing business in Putnam, to take that. I think they're right up there at the bulkhead,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
portion.
Yep.
And then in September, the National Industrial Service came in, September of 24, again, before you got here, but that was the lease that came in front of us, and that got approved unanimously, and that's the other half of the 16 acres. And then Copper Roads was presented in December 10th, of which this board approved unanimously, but they had some issues, I guess, with a gate.
I think that,
But that was the only lease that came in front of us at that time.
I believe, if we look back, National Industrial Services was interested in renting or leasing that property.
So they presented a lease?
They offered to lease that property, yes, ma'am. They were in communication with our team.
And you know this how?
The information was provided to me by our constituents. Full transparency again. My brother represents that group, and they did offer to lease that property at a higher dollar value than what we are offering to lease it now.
They offered to lease it in September whenever it was approved, is what you're saying?
No, ma'am, that is a separate parcel. You're referring to the north parcel that was approved. The south parcel that Copper Roads is looking at, they offered to lease that one and told they could not lease it because it was going to be used for dredge material storage.
Right, that's correct. Commissioner Harvey, I'm sorry, I thought you had.
No.
Okay, Commissioner Pelletier.
At that time, when that came about, the Copper Roads thing that was all I knew about that was presented to us that we had to vote on. That was all that was on the table. Since then, I've done some research, and after my tour of the port, and saw that there's nothing out there of Copper Roads. He has no equipment, nothing's been done on his part out there.
Because we have not signed the lease.
Pardon?
The lease has not been signed.
But he was approved, correct?
He was approved, but there was an issue with the gate and his insurance, is what I understand, which is why it's not signed today.
Well,
And
it's,
then we kicked it back at the last meeting for additional language.
okay. Hearing all that, it's through some research I've done that, and I had this conversation with Mr. Suggs the other day, that my way of doing business in the private sector is I would have contacted my neighbor that was already doing business with me and asked if they had an interest, that if they were a good paying client, that I would contact them rather than alienate them to see if they had an interest in coming on board and wanted more of the property or not. As long as they had the understanding that in the event that we commenced with our dredging, that they had, a reasonable amount of time to remove their stuff or get out of our way, so to speak. And I just, I'm all about making more money for the county that's possible. And if our current neighbor or current tenant is interested, I certainly would love to see that they have that opportunity.
Again, I have not seen a lease that's been presented to this board from what you two were referring to. So I don't know how you expect us to review and approve a lease that we don't have in front of us.
There was no lease presented
Okay.
because they were turned down verbally from staff. So the board was never allowed to vote on it. Similar, we were only allowed to vote on the one that was presented to us because we were presented only one lease as to being the only lease available, only interested party. When that is not the case, there are other parties that were interested that were not given the opportunity to lease the property.
Commissioner Harvey.
Madam Chair, I understand the conversation that's happening today, but I want to go back and reiterate my comments at the last meeting. I wasn't in favor of leasing any of that property out. The only reason I did was because we were looking at very short term and we were helping a business come to Putnam County, and I think that's our big job. This is another helping our business come to Putnam County that very well might help our citizens of Putnam County drive down prices on roads. And it's a very short-term lease, so they'll be out of our way. So I think when you look at maximizing the dollar, I think it's much more complicated than just going, okay, we have a hypothetical out there that might do this, but we know right now that the board approved this, and there was some language that needed to be cleaned up. And you very well can't ask a man to start a business without proper documentation going on. So I support my motion, and it still sits out there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Since this is a public hearing, we're going to open this time for public comment. Is there anybody who would like to discuss this lease under Port Authority for public comment? Please come forward if there's anyone who would like to have this discussion publicly. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Rhonda Williams. I'm sorry, I have a cold as well.
It's going
521
around.
Federal Point Road, East Palatka, Florida.
Yes.
Thank you all so very much. As you all know, I attend these meetings regularly. When I don't, I listen on the video, which I hope someday will be live, and so I can hear it live time. But this port has been something that's been in the making for a number of years. And I think that you all are looking at it in the right direction in that we are looking for long-term enrichment, not short-term gain. And so I've seen that happening through the years, and I really appreciate that. I also think that as we go forward, we're entering into a new era that we haven't had before. And so we're going to need to have a new way of thinking, a new outlook, and probably even some new language that goes into contracts. Some of the things that I've been thinking of, because when I heard the robust conversation from the last meeting on this topic, I started looking into this as well because I was concerned about a number of things. So, for example, issues regarding EPA, I would think that that would be covered under contract. So I do know that there's a current vendor who has some EPA issues at another site that they have. So I would hope that we would, before we got into any sort of agreement with any organization, that we would do our own homework and make sure that any entity, whether it's a short-term or a long-term arrangement, doesn't have any issues with other entities, EPA issues, legal issues. So I understand that there's also a legal issue with an existing leasee that we have who has issues in the Virgin Islands with the lease that they're having there. So I would hope that before we move forward with any contract, with any vendor, that we made sure that those issues are clarified and that we are protecting ourselves and protecting our citizens from any sort of action. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I appreciate exactly what you're saying. Like you said, any type of petroleum distillates close to the water, it is scary. So thank you for your comments.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Okay, we have public comment.
Jeremy Alexander, 134 Timberlane, Palatka. I do
Morning.
represent Mr. Nations on several issues, but specifically did work with staff. Appreciate that for his current port lease. As far as I know, Mr. Nations has no issues with the EPA currently. As a matter of fact, he doesn't operate a facility in the Virgin Islands. He's a contractor in the Virgin Islands, and as a matter of fact, he has 80 employees at the port. We were hoping this would be a long-term partnership with the county, and we were hoping we could tap into his knowledge long-term because he's operated that port and that terminal for about 25 years. So we appreciate what the county has done. I do want to make sure everybody understands the only functional restroom Mr. Nations has been able to get operating on that facility due to some of the infrastructure dilapidation the previous folks discussed is currently on the south parcel. So for his employees to continue to operate there, we would need to work through that issue. He's already put some new roofs on some of the structures. He's begun upgrading those facilities as promised, but the only functional water he's been able to get going so far sits just on that southern boundary line. So if it's not something this commission wants to work through with Mr. Nations as part of his long-term expansion plans right now, the barges he's bringing in, he's having to bring in to the north and the south. So we were hoping this would be a long-term partnership, but nonetheless, I hope we can work through the restroom issue at a minimum. So thank you.
Sure. I also did some research on Mr. Nations, which it's St. Croix. You just Google industrial, National Industrial Services St. Croix, and there are some articles that do pop up regarding a lawsuit that he's in the middle of and an EPA. So I think that might have been what Ms. Williams was alluding to. Anybody can Google it. And we do appreciate the relationship that we have with Mr. Nations, and we want to have a long-term relationship with him as well. I think the issue that was discussed in the previous board meetings, and they're all open to the public and anybody could go back and look, was that was going to be a laydown yard for a local contractor to use on a temporary basis. So that was the purpose. And that contractor is also the same person who is resurfacing some roads for Putnam County. So it's a benefit. But this agreement's a 6-month agreement. We're not looking at a 5-year lease. So I'm not sure that there won't be opportunities in the future if Mr. Nation still needs something. So those are my comments for now. Commissioner Pelletier.
My question, you, Mr. Alexander, does Mr. Nations, do you think, have interest in more of that property located at the port?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're absolutely. His plan is to grow roots here, and that's my job, is to get him to grow roots here. I mean, at one time he had 2,000 employees at the port and the refinery in the Virgin Islands. He's currently down to about 200, has roughly 150 in Diageo, which is the rum factory, and he still operates in between 80 and 90 at the terminal at the port. So, yeah, my idea is that he'll grow roots here and help grow with Putnam. So.
And Jeremy, so you work for him?
No, he's a client of Douglas Law Firm, and I'll work for Douglas Law Firm.
Okay.
He, lost train of thought.
I apologize.
With him having interest here and going forward, for those of you who do not know, all that I saw stored on that property is aluminum scaffolding material, which does not emit any kind of hazard to the environment. So I don't know what his other plans might be, but as of now, all I saw was aluminum scaffolding being
Yeah,
stored.
his lease is very specific in what he can do on that yard. I appreciate county staff and the county attorney and how they drafted that lease. It's very specific. No emissions to concern yourselves with. It's fabrication, welding, storage, lay down yard, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and it did look like he was doing a good job on improving the buildings.
Yes, I call it the office building of the old chip and saw.
Yes.
He's done great work there because it at one time had a hole in the roof, and now it has a new tin roof, and it's been painted on the exterior. I've not seen the inside, but I'm sure whatever's inside is salvageable now that he's done the exterior work. But again, I was looking on the financial side of making the most money for the county, as long as the understanding with whoever is there that when the time comes that we need to, they're out of the way for our dredging to be piled over there, that they're willing to accept and do so.
Yep. He wants to continue to walk hand in hand. So, yep.
All right. Before we move on, are you done, Mr.?
Yes.
Thank you. I have a question for our county attorney. Does Commissioner Alexander need to declare a conflict of interest and recuse himself from this vote?
So conflict analysis is a personal one. I don't know if he receives any sort of benefit. With your brother being involved, there's the potential for the conflict. That's something I would just be mindful of.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Alexander. You're recognized.
Thank you. Yes, if it pleases the chair, I will recuse myself from this vote, but I would like to make a comment. So, Mr. Alexander, you're telling me that Mr. Nations at one time employed over 2,000 people?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And how many people does Georgia Pacific currently employ?
Roughly 900, sir.
Okay. How many does the school system employ?
Roughly 2,000, sir.
Okay. And Seminole Electric, just for...
A couple hundred.
Okay. So we're looking at this man who has had a track record of growing a company to 2,000 employees, who has made an investment in both our airport and our port, looking to grow further, and has conceded to terminate the lease at any point. And I thought the whole purpose of this was to grow our county economically. And I think that we should give a little more insight into working with this gentleman.
We're here, and we're anxious to work with the county. So,
Thank you.
Administrator Suggs, does our current lease with Mr. Nations have a term date?
I believe it's a 3-year with some options, with 2 1-year extensions built into it. Is that where we're at currently?
Okay. I see that we have another public comment. Ms. Williams?
Thank you. Commissioner Pelletier, you brought up scaffolding. If you will Google this company and Mr. Nations, you'll see that in St. Croix, there was a facility he was leasing that had scaffolding. The scaffolding, he was ordered by a judge to remain with the facility. Now, scaffolding was shipped from St. Croix to Palatka, Florida. It's public record. Now, it might not be the same scaffolding that you saw. I would highly suspect that it is the same scaffolding, but it was ordered to be remained with that facility in St. Croix. So again, my concern is, who are we getting into business with? Are we doing our due diligence?
Thank you. Commissioner Palacier, and I know that we don't normally allow this, but I'm allowing this because this box has been opened, and we're going to close it, and we're going to close it properly. Commissioner Palacier.
In response to Ms. Williams, I never have known of aluminum to have any kind of runoff that was bad. Aluminum's aluminum, whether it's aluminum scaffolding or aluminum can. So I'm not familiar, and I'm not a scientist or physicist, but I don't know what the difference is there.
My issue, sir, isn't an EPA issue. It's a theft issue.
Okay. All right.
I'm not a law enforcement official, so it wouldn't concern me.
I think she's just bringing to light public information. We have a vote on, we have a
Madam Chair,
yes.
may I make a point? We have one lease in front of us.
Yes, sir.
We're defending and tearing down somebody that's not even present here to speak. We don't have another lease in our pocket. Mr. Alexander, you've been told basically that if there's opportunities in the future, we'll look at that. But today we have one item on our agenda, and I do not want to drag anybody through the mud without them being here to be able to defend themselves. And that's my comment, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, I've allowed public comment, so let me come on forward, Ed.
Good morning. Ed Killebrew, 146 Barden Estates Circle. First off, Mr. Commando, if I'm wrong, Chairman, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I believe when you recuse yourself from all speaking about the project, Mr. Alexander.
But he did not recuse himself.
Oh, I thought he just did a minute ago.
No, he said if I requested him to do so, which
Okay.
I will not.
I stand corrected.
I will leave that on his shoulders.
I stand corrected then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Palacier.
My question is for Mr. Commando. You said we have a lease, but it's not signed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
We had a lease that was presented to the commission in December. Because of technical issues, that lease was not yet signed.
But it's not been signed by the Copper Roads representative?
It's not been signed by anyone. that I'm
Okay,
aware
so
of.
what is the validity of that lease?
It's not valid yet. That's why there's an amended lease that's for your consideration. It can either be approved or denied today.
My point is that with a lease that's not signed by us or them, there's no validation of a direction to take that is, we're obligated to do so. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's right.
But remember, this board, including yourself, voted unanimously on that first lease.
I
Commissioner
voted.
Alexander.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, JR. We voted unanimously on a lease that was not accurate, nor did any of us, myself included, know that there were other interested parties in the property. We were not made privy to that information by staff. A constituent brought that information to me, and I had to go behind and read the contract to find out that there was no out in the contract for the county. So that's where we're at on the
Well,
contract.
to say the lease was inaccurate, I don't know that that's a true statement. I mean, it's a lease that was presented to us. If there's an inaccuracy, we are supposed to address that when those leases come in front of us at the time. That lease came in front of us in December. This is February. Commissioner Palacier, you're recognized.
I voted on what was before me, and that was it. So I don't think that everything was on the table at that time that I feel like should have been, any other possible interested parties. So to be clear, that's what I voted for on all that I was presented, nothing else.
Okay. All right. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2. Any further general discussion on Port Authority items? All right, hearing none, we will close close the Port Authority meeting and reconvene the BOCC meeting. Presentations, going into presentations. First, if we can have Brett Peterson up from the Rotary Club of Crescent City. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Good morning, Brett Peterson, 315 Chestnut Street.
Good morning,
Good morning.
fellow
Good to see you all.
Rotarians.
I know all of you. Well, this morning we'd like to recognize somebody who's done so much for our community and has decided to recently step back just a little bit. And although that's kind of disappointing because we depend on him for helping us out in the community, we want to recognize him and our appreciation for what he has done. And I'm talking about Larry Harvey. And for the Rotary Club of Crescent City, he has been the MC for the parade for many years. He has done the cooking for the Swine and Wine. And this Saturday we're having, we'll be helping out cooking with the Wild Game Feast. And Larry has been cooking for them for many, many years. So for Rotary, he's done so much, and probably a lot I don't know. Everyone knows Larry has helped people raise money with his famous pork butts. And, it's not only Rotary, it's helping the community, helping not only service organizations, but community groups, churches, and so on. Larry has been there front and center helping people out. And I have him on Facebook, and it's often somebody, hey, I have a refrigerator. Does somebody need a refrigerator? So Larry is always looking out for his community, for his fellow man, and he really stands up with the Rotary motto of service above self. And we'd like to take this moment, our clubs here locally, to recognize Larry Harvey with a plaque, and it reads, Spirit of Service, President's Awards of Excellence presented to Larry Harvey for the many years of extraordinary efforts helping the Rotary Club of Crescent City raise scholarship funds for deserving kids. And Larry, we want to thank you.
So while he's shaking hands, we have all the Rotary clubs represented here in Putnam County, and he obviously has touched every one of those, along with many people in the community. So thank you, Larry, and we'll get a picture. You guys come on up. Absolutely. I know how to move. I know how to move. Oh, I got to move by Linda. Yep. There we go. I'm good. No, I'm good. Thank you. No, you're fine, Linda. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you.
Hey, before y'all leave, I do want to say something here. My faith plays a major role in my life, as you well know. And what started me on this journey was 2 things. One, at hunting camp. Poor guys couldn't cook out there worth a darn. And I wasn't going to the local place, the fast food joint, so I started cooking. And I enjoy cooking, and it takes my mind off of a lot of things. I often say, cooking pork butts at 3 in the morning, they don't complain about taxes or roads or drainage or nothing like that. Walton, you and I have been there. We've done it. Another thing that started me was a gentleman called me one day Ed Marone from my church. He said, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'll be there in 10 minutes." And he pulls in my yard with a pull-behind cooker. This was 20 years ago. And he said he felt led of the Lord that I was to get a cooker and start cooking for people. I did not know what that meant, but hey, I'm a guy, and when somebody pulls in the yard with a pull-behind cooker, I was very much appreciative of that. And I've learned to cook, and it's a service that I can provide. I never could write the big checks. I couldn't do that. I didn't have the finances for that. But I could provide my service, and I could provide my talents that God gave me. And I'm thankful that this community, and I say that as much as I possibly can, allows people to recreate themselves all the time. And you can always hit that start over button and recreate yourself and move forward. So thank you all so much for everything. I mean that.
Very good. I'm going to take a point of order. I have Kay Tucker, a local resident, would like to speak for just a few minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Kay Tucker, 585 Stokes Landing Road, Palatka. I'm here representing Putnam Baptist Church. And I just put a mint in my mouth, I'm sorry. On the 22nd, which is a week from Saturday, we are having a Heritage Day celebration. And as many of you probably already know, Billy Graham was baptized and ordained through Putnam Baptist Church. And we just want to celebrate that. We did recently receive a historical plaque from the state of Florida, Division of Historic Preservation. And we're just celebrating that. Billy Graham Evangelistic Association is going to be there. We're real excited about that. Rory Graham and Will Graham both are going to be there. Dinner on the grounds, it's all free. We'd like to invite everybody.
Listen, there's nothing better than a Southern Baptist dinner on the grounds. My goodness.
So,
Fried chicken, tomato. I can see it now.
yeah, it's going to be chicken and rice and chicken pot pie and
Yeah,
it'll
be good.
It'll be good. It'll be good. So, really look forward to seeing everybody there. We're going to be doing tours of the old church, and there's going to be games for the kids. So, lots of stuff going on.
And what time did you say?
It's from 10 to 2.
Okay.
On the 22nd.
All right. Well, thank you for
Okay.
the invite.
And I have a
Yes,
flyer.
absolutely.
Can I pass them out?
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to dinner on the grounds, I'm telling you.
Thank you.
You're right about that.
Before we go into planning and development, we're going to take a few minutes of recess, 5 minutes.
That's right, you're on the back side of the lake. I've had more fun with
Meeting. Thank you. We have in front of us the evaluation and appraisal report, which is planning and development public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Zachary Baker, Planning and Development Services.
Good morning, Zach.
Today we hope to adopt Ordinance 2025-004, which is codifying the comprehensive plan text amendment that was done based off of the annual or evaluation and appraisal report every 7 years. I'd like to introduce consultant Robert Jordan with the Northeast Florida Regional Council to take us through the summary of our changes.
Good morning, Robert.
Morning, members of the Commission. Robert Jordan, Regional Planner, Northeast Florida Regional Council. And as Zach was indicating, we began working on this project to assist the county with updates to their comprehensive plan to reflect the statutory changes required every 7 years. There's a process called the evaluation review process. All communities have to go through it every 7 years to make sure your comprehensive plan reflects the most recent statutory changes. We began the process in July, I believe is when the contract began, and there was a vote to transmit in October. It was transmitted to Florida Commerce, which is the state land use planning agency, and other review agencies as well. We received no comments or objections from any of the review agencies, so we're up to vote for, we're here for the adoption. I'm going to just briefly kind of go through some of those changes because we have new members that were not here during the transmittal stage. So the major proposed changes, the first one was the update to the planning time frame. All comprehensive plans have to have a planning time frame. Recent legislation pushed it to 20-year time frames, and so we updated the planning time frame for the comprehensive plan to 2045. So that's within the name, and that will be the reference to the comprehensive plan going forward if this is adopted. In regards to text and statutory changes, or references to statutory changes, beginning on page 74 of your packet, that's the first big one, that's the affordable housing. There was a bill passed about, I think, 2 years ago now, the Live Local Act, and it was a bunch of things that went into this law that addressed affordable housing, some preemption of municipal and local governments. The portion of the text that's on that page is referring to the local governing body, so the Board of County Commissioners, may approve the development of housing that is affordable, and there's a statutory definition to affordability, and it's based upon area median income, because something affordable here is going to be different than something affordable in Jacksonville. And if it's as long as at least 10% of the units. So that reference to the statute is embedded into that particular policy, which is proposed policy 8.1.9.3 on page 74 of your packet. So that's the first of the statutory changes required. The next one is on pages 82 and 83, and it's specifically permitting resiliency facilities. It's the state term for natural gas distribution points and centers that will be permitted uses in commercial and industrial land uses. So we added in text to those particular land use districts in your comprehensive plan to allow the permitting of resiliency facilities as defined by the statute. The next one is on page 86. This already was allowed in your comprehensive plan. And if I'm going too fast, I do apologize.
You're fine.
Okay. On page 86, this is solar facilities. You already allow solar facilities as a permitted use in your agricultural district, but we wanted to reference the statute, where we put in the statutory definition of solar facilities. That way you're kind of covering yourself within that policy. But it was already allowed, but that just covers the state definition. And then there was a couple of changes that happened with what was called House Bill 1379, which was addressing sanitary sewage development and developments in what was called the Basin Management Action Plans, or BMAPs, which are defined as basins of major rivers and tributaries that have an abnormally high level of nutrients and nitrogen that have been determined. And the Lower St. John's and the Ocklawaha were both basin management action areas that were in the county. A little bit of Ocklawaha in the southwestern portion of the county. The sanitary sewage, there's a policy that was put in, and it's on page 138. It's a new objective, D.1.7, and associated policies. The county is right now exempt from carrying forward this requirement regarding sanitary sewage development in specific to that particular legislation, because you all are in a rural area of opportunity. But that's not permanent. That's up through 2028. It could be extended. So we just put in placeholder text. It literally is just saying we will follow this if it changes. It's really what it just is on. So there's nothing that the policy that's proposed is not holding the county to anything. It's just placeholder text. And then further on in pages 180, I think page 180, that is we proposed the table of projects that were listed by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, as well as local information from the planning staff here that addressed these BMAPs that's required by that statutory change as well. So that was put into capital improvements element as an appendix. So those are the major statutory changes that have happened since. We have some other proposed changes that went in as well to reflect local input, some wording changes in the future land use element that are on pages 79 and 85. And then there's also changes with updates to the county water supply facility work plan. All communities within the St. Johns River Water Management District are considered water resource caution areas, so they have to have a water supply facility work plan. And the county does, but you have to update it every so often when the regional water supply plan from the Water Management District gets updated. It's within 18 months. So the regional water supply plan was updated in December of 2023, so 18 months is June of this year. And so we're just updating, reflecting the data in that regional water supply plan and any updates to policies within that water supply plan. And that is beginning on page 142 is the actual county water supply plan. The major changes are reflecting the water demand numbers and population projection numbers within the regional water supply plan. We did also update some of the maps to address the future land use map series. The last update was 2021, so not all of them needed to be updated, but just to reflect more recent changes to data, to reflect the statutory required maps that need to be within your map series. And the county also provided the most recent capital improvements plan before transmittal in October to be included as an appendix to the capital improvements elements, just so that your capital improvements element is referencing your most recent capital improvements plan. So those are some of the major changes that have happened since then. As I said, we didn't receive any comments or objections, so we haven't made really any changes since October. So it's ready to adopt based upon what those changes were, what was transmitted in October.
Thank you. This was our second reading. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad you're at the water real quick, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
On page 145, I think down at the bottom, you've got Cyber Lake Oaks. I think you meant to say Silver Lake Oaks. Wouldn't that be correct, Commissioner Palatka? I think that would be in.
Oh, yeah, it's got a V.
And then there's two, I know there's two private ones out in West Putnam. One, JR, Mr. Grimes, I'm sorry. One across from Lady Slipper Lake, there's one. And then there's one down by Aquila in a mobile home park on 21 down there.
The one in Aquila is ours. That's Paradise Point belongs to the county. I'm not sure about the one across from Lady Slipper Lake, but the one across from
I think
Aquila
that's a
is.
private one that feeds those homes down there, but I'm not, those are the only two that I know of, and I don't see them listed on here. The other one, we just took over the
St. John's Harbor.
St. John's Harbor one. So I thought I saw it on there.
It's the very first one.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's one needs to be changed to the county at that point. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think how this is organized is based upon the CUP numbers, but we can reference that it is county-owned.
Yeah.
Because it's listed as a small supply system on the regional water supply plan with the CUP permit. So it's just addressing the size. That this table's just addressing the size. Because it's the point of this document is just to make sure you all can meet the water allocated within your county, and that's not just you all have a CUP permit for your water service areas, but also CUP permits for private entities as well, including, that's why there's this FGUA list that doesn't have CUP permits. They're so small, but they're still being listed in there. So we definitely can make that, because these ones that don't have CUP numbers, we could definitely ensure that those are based on what information you guys have to reflect.
Well, Robert, thank you. And Zach, if you will, Madam Chair, while I still have the floor, I want to thank Zach and also want to thank Mr. Helms. Was on the phone with them yesterday going over some, not too many pages, but a few comments that I had. If I can direct your attention, Commissioners, to page 65, item 3. A concern I had was the following uses shall not be permitted in special flood hazards. Just keep in mind that, Robert, you probably understand this too, the flood maps change constantly, and you might not be in a flood zone now, but we could be in certain areas. So we need to be mindful of that going into the future if we have something there that we know is going to come to pass. That was just a concern of mine. I also want to point out on page 73 on item B, and you'll remember for some of the new commissioners you might not, but this came to me around the time when I was at the regional council. Water Management made a presentation about the properties just north of Lady Slipper Lake area, and how much of a water recharge they were. And Zach, you and I went over that yesterday. We probably can't put an overlay on that for water recharge, but like you said, there might be something this board or a future board can do to minimize the concrete. Well, I think you can explain it better. Why don't you give a stab at it? So the idea is to try to keep as much natural on property as we can by allowing certain things.
Sure. So, Madam Chair and the rest of the commission, what Commissioner Harvey and I discussed yesterday in part was potentially the establishment of either an overlay or an amendment to both our comprehensive plan and land development code, which would decrease the impervious surfaces allowed on properties that are within the high aquifer recharge area. In essence, that would lower the amount of development that could occur on those properties and therefore leave more area open for water to permeate back into the aquifer. But it would be a pretty large undertaking because it would require, extensive modifications to both our comprehensive plan and our land development code. Both of those instruments are used to enforce and apply land development regulations.
And my concern there, commissioners and staff, is simply this. Those lots were developed way before any land regulations were ever there. So I go around, and from what I've been told, that this area is the most platted, undeveloped area in Florida. And maybe that's true or maybe it's not true, but you've got thousands of 75 by 125 lots out there. Now, the chances of we'll ever see that build out probably will never happen, but it could happen. Somebody could. And then we would see what we see in my neighborhood. And, you know, let's be honest here, my well is not that far from my neighbor's septic. So when you start looking at, you know, if we're going to have that throughout here, there might be some possibility to save that water recharge area if it's that important. And that's what I wanted to bring up. So thank you. Thank you very much. And then on page 85, Commissioner Wilkinson and I on item 9B, we're up at the Regional Council this week, and the gentleman from the Navy was there. And he pretty much was talking about, I raised the question about Hog Island, for those of you that remember when we had the PUD come before us on Hog Island. And the Navy showed up and kind of were against it. And I pretty much said, well, why weren't you there beforehand? Why didn't you come to us and give us something? But we found out something very interesting last Thursday in Jacksonville, that these military zones, the Navy is I say the Navy, let's just say the armed forces are mitigating those uses by saying, hey, so-and-so, don't build a mother-in-law suite. We'll pay you not to do this. Right. So there's some incentives that the armed forces are doing that, even though it's nice to say, you know, no-fly zones and all that, they have their own mitigation that we need to be mindful of. So, Zach, I appreciate, again, yesterday, you and Mr. Helms taking my call. I really think this document's great. It's always going to be a living document, no doubt about that. But we're pretty good shape, I think, with this document. And again, thank you for taking time with me yesterday to go through page by page. I told you a lot more pages. I was just leading you on. That's all. But thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to make those comments.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to speak regarding this evaluation and appraisal report? All right. Hearing none, we'll come back to the commission.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve Putnam County Ordinance Number 2025-004, an ordinance of Putnam County, Florida, amending the Comprehensive Plan of Putnam County, Florida, updating statutory Florida Administrative Code and government agency references, providing for the development of affordable housing, requiring the county to comply with sanitary sewer provisions if exceptions change, adopts a list of projects in the BMAP, providing for conflicts, providing for direction to the codifier, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you for reading that into the record. Is there a second?
Second.
Proper motion and proper second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Thank you. Excuse me. Consent agenda items. Public comment on consent agenda items. This portion of the agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It is not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation about matters on which the board has received no prior information as part of the agenda. Please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment cards are conveniently placed at the meeting room entrance and should be submitted prior to the meeting to the deputy clerk who sits to the right of the podium. This is public comment on consent agenda items only. Do we have any public comment cards? Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak on consent agenda items? All right, commissioners.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve items A, B, and C.
Well, I was going to make sure nobody had anything to pull.
Okay.
Commissioner Alexander, do you have anything to pull?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Commissioner Newbold?
Nothing to pull.
Commissioner Pelsier?
I have nothing.
Commissioner, what's your name?
Yeah,
Harvey.
Harvey. Obviously, I don't, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve consent agenda items A, B, and C.
We have a proper motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, moving into new business. We have a couple things on our new business items. Again, this is also public comment. Is there any public comment on new business items before we step into them? All right. Public Works, request to advertise for a public hearing to vacate a portion of an unnamed street in Cayuga. Yes, please. J.T. Stout.
Commissioners. This section that is being asked to vacate is unused by the public. It borders their property. I think it's only 15 feet wide. Their fence and their well currently lies in this right-of-way. So because it's not being used, we don't have any objection to it being vacated. I believe the power company only wants to be able to have an easement through there, which they've already agreed to do, and it's already drawn up. So we don't have any objections to the vacate.
All right, that's pretty self-explanatory. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this item, but I will want to bring to mind that the old Interlaken Hotel is located on this road up before that vacation. So thank you.
All right. Any further discussion from the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is just permission to advertise for the next meeting for a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. All right. Request to advertise.
So moved.
So moved. We have a motion on the floor.
I second that.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. To advertise for the vacation. All right, we have an item from the Chamber of Commerce regarding tourist development. This was added to your agenda, page 222 to 223. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. I'm Laura Pavlis, President of the Putnam County Chamber of Commerce, and it's absolutely my pleasure to introduce you today to Kimberly Morgan, our new Vice President of Tourism, who's joined us last week. We're very excited to have her on the team. She brings over 30 years of regional tourism experience to our county, so this is wonderful. I'm going to give her the floor to speak in just a moment to introduce her to you all, but we are going to go ahead and poll our emergency action item. We have resolved it internally.
Thank you all for letting me represent Putnam County with the tourism and destination marketing efforts. I'm looking forward to digging in and really telling the great stories that there are here in Putnam County.
All right, so that item was pulled. Is there, welcome to Putnam County.
Yes.
We appreciate you, and we look forward to the future of Putnam County.
Thank you all.
right.
See you in Tallahassee for a little bit.
One other item that's not on your agenda, but we do have Andrew from Northeast Florida Regional Council who would like to present legislative priorities on behalf of the council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Prokopiak. I'm the Senior Resiliency Planner with the Northeast Florida Regional Council, and I've come to present you with the 2025 Northeast Florida Regional Council legislative priorities as adopted by our Board of Directors. So if you would, I have copies for each commissioner and a copy for the record.
Okay. If you'll just hand them to Ashley and let her, and then that way you can begin your presentation. Oh, that was it. Okay. All right. I didn't know if there was anything you needed to talk about.
That's good enough.
All right. Good enough. All right.
The
Moving
Board
on
of Directors
to.
approved it, so.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Public comment on miscellaneous items. I've already read this before. Do we have any comment cards on miscellaneous items? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have Cohen for Blue Crab Productions who would like to speak. Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners,
Good morning.
Clerk, and administrators. My name is Ken Mayabu, and some of you may not know me. I'm the editor of the Dancing Mastodon in North Palatka, a local magazine. I also work for the Blue Crab Production as a business programmer. And essentially, what I've come up with is a program for Putnam County that actually does two things. I'm not sure if you all are aware that according to the Florida Department of Education, that 42% of our students are proficient, on-level proficient or exemplary in reading. So the program that I came up with for Putnam County essentially addresses that. Essentially, when I say 42%, I mean 58% of our elementary school students are performing below grade level. And that's going to be an issue for us. If our students aren't able to proficiently read, they won't be able to handle port information, or they won't be able to read these documents. So the schools are doing their job. The teachers are doing their job. There needs to be a community response to encourage our children to actually make that extra effort, because we're battling the digital entertainment. We're battling social media. And rewarding them for taking that extra effort for learning, actually taking the time to as a group. So I came up with the Blue Crab Book Rewards program, and I just wanted the opportunity to ask for your support and some type of funding for this program. We have about 5,825 students, according to Putnam County. I work with the district on these numbers. Out of those 5,825 students, we've broken them down and determined, according to their accelerated reading scores, that roughly between 15 and 20% of them actually meet their reading scores at their individual schools. And we're talking about, is that my time? We're talking about Middleton, Bernie, Melrose, Jenkins, Akawilla, Browning, Pierce, Kelly Smith, Children Reading Center, Mosley, Mellon Learning Center, and James A. Long. So we roughly just went through all the schools, looked at their scores, how many of them actually complete their reading goals, and determined that our program could create some type of initiative for about 1,200 students who will actually complete their goals. And what makes it a business program is, if you remember the Book It program, which I want to say 2 decades ago was a program that helped my generation, encouraged us to want to read. We essentially pulled that program, dusted off, and said, okay, instead of, we'll reward our students, and instead of giving the funds to, or having our students go to a national business like a Pizza Hut or so, we'll actually bring in the local businesses. So the students will go to a local business in Crescent City, like Three Bananas, or here in Palatka, they'll go to Pizza Boys, or Hoot Owl, or we have JB Wings that signed on. And in Melrose, their local businesses. So I'm just here to actually request the opportunity for your support for this program.
And you mentioned funding. You're requesting funding?
Yes. Well, essentially, the total program is $12,000 for all 1,200 students. We've broken it up by municipality, by the city of Palatka, Crescent City, Interlochen, Melrose, Hawthorne, and San Mateo. Essentially, I'm coming to you to cover the cities of Hawthorne and San Mateo, if that will be possible. And then I'll be making the other inquiry request at the other.
And what is that funding request?
I actually need the information on how to do those things, how to seek that funding request.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of the procedure for how to do so.
Okay. And so have you been working with the school district?
I have.
I mean, I'm not meaning just to get the information. I mean, have you been working with them as far as their existing programs?
How would I describe this? So, along with the officials to get the data, we came up with this this will be a outside initiative.
Okay. So I know that in this county, we have the Baby Brain Builders program. We also have the 21st Century After. I just made some notes. I have 3 grandchildren in school, and so I'm very well aware of what's available. And we all could use help with reading. Trust me. But we have the Baby Brain Builders, which is a nonprofit in Putnam. We also have the 21st Century, which is an after-school program. And I know for my granddaughters, that's when they're reading 30 minutes a day. Every day they stay after school. They read, they get tutored, and then they might have some playtime. They also, of course, we have the Putnam Education Foundation, which is a good program as well and a nonprofit. We have not funded any of those programs here in Putnam at this board. We have not done that in the past.
Right.
So that's my comments that I have at this point. Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you, Calvin, for coming out. I've known Calvin for probably a year and a half. The magazine that he does produce, The Dancing Mastodon, there's a copy on my desk. You guys may have seen it when you're in there. So I've seen the quality of the work that he can produce. I applaud you for engaging in this community, especially being as new to the community as you are. I would like to learn more about the program, how you plan on engaging. Is your entire ask the $12,000, or are we going to be responsible? You're asking for a portion of it for just Hawthorne and San Mateo. So I have some questions, but I've seen what you can do. So, I'm open to listen.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your presence. Are there any other questions for the presenter? All right. Any comments?
Well, I just piggyback on Josh. I'd like to learn a little bit more. I like the idea of an outside entity working with the school system. Anything complementary to help our kids read. This is my wife's specialty. We need more help here than we know. So get us some more information. We'll look at it again in the future.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, administrators.
Good seeing you.
All right. Moving down into our agenda, are there any appointments, starting with Commissioner Alexander?
Yes, ma'am. I have one appointment to the at-large, excuse me.
Mr. Alexander, will you hit your butt?
Yep.
There you go.
One appointment, Matt Williams for the zoning board, the at-large position.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
we need to
Ms.
vote on that
Ratliff
one.
moved out of the county, I believe.
Matt Williams.
Mhm.
All right. We have a motion for Matt Williams as at-large for Zoning Board of Adjustment. Is there a second?
For the
Second.
Second. Any discussion by the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Commissioner Alexander, do you have any further?
No, ma'am.
All right. Commissioner Newbold.
Also for Zoning Board of Adjustments, I'd like to nominate Dan Dodge from Crescent City.
For District 1, Dan Dodge, like Dodge the pickup truck?
Like Dodge the pickup truck.
All right. That does not need a motion. Commissioner Pelletier.
I had one earlier, but it abandoned ship, so I have nothing.
Do what?
I had one earlier, and she abandoned ship
Okay.
on me, so I have nothing.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
The appointment I wanted to make was for the planning commission, not the ZBOA.
Okay, all right. So scratch that. Matt Williams is not going to be appointed to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, so you're making a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to nominate Matt Williams for the at-large position on the planning commission.
All right, thank you. Second?
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Matt Williams at large for the Planning Commission. Anything else, Commissioner Alexander?
No, ma'am, I'm done. I'm ready to go eat.
Commissioner Harvey?
I have none, Madam Chair.
And I have none. All right, so that gets us through our appointments. I'm going to go ahead before we go into other comments and move down to my comments on commissioner comments regarding the legislative request. I guess I could have put this under new business. But basically, let me find my paperwork. We have received a request from some leaders in the community regarding asking the state for a feasibility study in the amount of $2 million for engineering projects for the expansion of water and sewer along U.S. Highway 17 from the city of Palatka limits, which is at the intersection at 17 and 100, north to the Clay-Putnam County line. So as you guys know, our county is growing, And so this is just a request from some leaders in the community to see if the state would be willing to invest in into this study for us. And the results of the study would provide a roadmap for the county to establish safe potable water as well as efficient sewer services to that area. And so we've already established our legislative priorities, so this is a request coming to the board and to add it to our legislative priorities, and I wouldn't have done that without the board's thought process and approval. So, Commissioner Harvey.
Madam Chair, thank you for bringing this up. I think that's badly needed, and I think if it comes to us from leaders of our community, I think it's a good push. I mean, as you well know, we just put money into that other water facility that was basically given to us. So I think this is a good push for us to be able to serve the residents of North Putnam County in that area. So I applaud you and I support this.
Sounded a motion? I don't know
That's
that
a
I
second.
necessarily need a motion. I just need wave and support, really.
Wave and support.
Is everybody good? Okay, thank you. All right, Clerk Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioners. Just real quick, wanted to give an update on status of the audit of last fiscal year. Spoke with the auditors last week. The board financials have been closed out, so all the information in the AS 400 should be accurate for last year. And they are planning to get us draft audit figures the first couple of weeks in March. The end goal to be able to issue the final financial statements is March 31st. So, and they said they feel confident about that. We were the first client of theirs to get the trial balance numbers and everything for the board over to them. So we beat several other bigger counties. So we were first in, and hopefully we'll be first out. They said they felt very confident about that. So.
Yeah, and how are your renovations going at your customer service? I was there yesterday, had to apply for a passport, so I
Yes, ma'am.
see the issues that you have mentioned.
I just spoke with Julie McLean, our special project manager, about that yesterday. She was giving us a short update. She's kind of broken that project up into 4 phases. She's still working with Joe Kunemeyer to get the previous plans that we kind of brought the draft idea in front of the board back when the board approved it. And once those plans are finalized, we'll be turning them into planning and zoning to be able to start pulling permits on that. But hopefully phase 1 will be bathrooms, the bathroom upgrades. So she's got it laid out very well. She's done a great job. So very appreciative of her for doing that for us.
Okay. Do you have any other comments?
No, ma'am. That's it.
All right, are there any questions for Clerk Reynolds? All right, County Attorney Rich Commando.
I don't have anything, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. County Administrator.
Yes, ma'am,
Suggs.
Madam Chair, thank you. I just one quick comment, honestly. I was going to piggyback on the I Love Harvey presentation this morning, and for a simple fact is, I believe our Rotary Club was a sponsor of the new Rotary Club in Interlochen, and and one of the first things that I was invited to when I came to Putnam County was a meeting at the Rotary Club by Commissioner Harvey. And so that was a nice opportunity to get to see the folks and meet the folks that we were responsible for helping get started. It was fantastic. And when you talk about public service, you see the cooker being pulled around town about Commissioner working on behalf of Putnam County. He does do a lot of cooking. He does a lot of cooking for folks here in Putnam County. But if he ain't careful, he's going to drag you to other Putnam counties as well. I guess, Commissioner, it was 4 years ago, we went to Putnam County, Georgia, and did a cook-off against some folks up in Putnam County, Georgia. And then before anybody goes and looks, yes, I took a vacation day for that.
And we lost the cook-off.
No, sir, we didn't lose. We were raw. When the thing that I remember most, other than the fact that they had their local House rep as a judge, so the fix was in, Commissioner Harvey, we go out of town, it's just the two of us, and he hits the sack about 7 o'clock at night. And so you're kind of left to fend for yourself, and then he gets up at 4:30 in the morning, and we go to start a cooker at 6 a.m. in the morning. It was 20 degrees, and the cooker had a thermostat that wouldn't start until it reached 32. And so we spent 3 hours out in the cold just hanging out visiting. And,
You're a
but
better
no,
person than
in
me.
all seriousness, you know, Commissioner Hart's done tremendous things for this community, and he's very well respected. And, you know, and I appreciate the things that I've got to do with you, Commissioner Harvey. And yes, that trip to Putnam County, Georgia was one of the highlights, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I really do appreciate the hard work that you put into this community. And as county administrator, it doesn't go unnoticed by my staff, myself, or the citizens of Putnam County. So well deserved, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right. Commissioner comments, starting with Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo what Mr. Suggs said. We're all aware of Mr. Harvey's clock. It's a little different than the rest of ours, but we're all beginning to get used to receiving our updates and our emails at 4:30, 4:45 every morning. But I want to thank you, Larry, for what you've done for our community, and that award was well deserved.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Newbold.
Yes, ma'am. Larry, thank you. My father made it a point before I left this morning that he wanted to let you know he was disappointed he couldn't be here to represent as well. He also appreciates everything you do, your support for Rotary in the community and all that jazz. Thank you so much. On another note, I continue to get a lot of calls from the community on our animal services projects. I know we have positive momentum going there. It would help me out if maybe we could get an update at a future meeting. There's lots of stuff, positive stuff going on, but it'd be good for the community to have opportunity to hear a little bit more about that. So that's all I have.
Right, Commissioner Palacier.
Again, Larry, well deserved. I know about those early mornings and all that kind of stuff. I got that T-shirt. Perhaps y'all would have had a better shot at winning that in Putnam County, Georgia, if you'd taken some Walt's barbecue sauce with it. That could have been the edge that you would needed to take you over the top. On all serious, I love to brag on our folks when I have that experience, and I've had another one this past week with Mr. Baker. Took him out to a gentleman's house that had a property line setback issue, and he did an excellent job explaining and taking care of the gentleman, and just exemplary service. And the man was, after you drove off, Zach, he was just about ready to turn a cartwheel because you had made his dreams come true and told him he could build what he wanted to build there. So I love to brag on our folks when things are really, really good, and he's an asset to Putnam County for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for all the accolades, but I've learned from people up here, and I just go where I'm needed. One thing I always say about Putnam County, it's one of the most givenest counties I've ever seen in my life. I've only lived here, actually, so I don't know of any other place. But there's something going on every weekend to help somebody who's in need, and this community really shows out for that. And there's plenty of opportunities to help in any arena that you want to go to. I did attend the Florida Association of Counties Tech Summit down in Ocala. Mr. Ritchie was with me down there, and Jacob attended also. I was able to put on a riveting, I would say, conversation about AI and what's going to take place in the future, and gave some of my 445 emails after I run them through ChatGPT. So there's things that, and I'm not advocating doing that. What I'm trying to say is I think AI has made me a better communicator in getting my point across, and I think staff sees that when that comes across. And plus, my wife doesn't read it and go, you need to change this whole thing because it doesn't make sense. So it's helped me a lot be able to communicate better. We're going to be looking forward to the future. AI is coming. It's going to happen, but I don't think it's something to be scared of. I think it's something we can embrace and use as we choose to use it and not as we're forced to use it. So, but it was a good tech conference, and look forward to Rural Days is coming up, and we're getting prepared for that. So look forward to any time we can get out and promote Putnam County. That's what I love to do the most, and I think that's our biggest job is to do that. Because if we're not telling our story, somebody else is, and it might not be the story we want to be told. So, Madam Chair, that's the end of my comments, and thank you very much.
Well said. And also, I congratulate you on your plaque and your achievements that you've done in the community. You've certainly led by example, and I think that speaks for itself. I want to thank the Northeast Florida Regional Council for coming up and sharing the legislative priorities. One of the things that's most important to us is our future, and that includes our infrastructure. And so in this, one of their legislative priorities is, of course, to support our rural county for the SCRAP and SCOP grants and other programs focused on transportation. And in Putnam County, that it's a big need for Putnam, and we generally are, usually we're blessed with getting some kind of a grant. And this last year, it was huge in your district. Sure. And so without those grants, our local tax dollars would really, it would be hard for us. So we appreciate the Northeast Florida Regional Council making that a priority for their legislative as they go through the state. So I thank you. On update on animal services, I will say there was an adoption event this weekend at Pet Sense. I saw it myself, and I would like to also get an update on that, and I believe Mr. Grimes is going to come back and give us an update for the paramedicine program and also some fire rescue. So maybe we can add that to the next agenda. With that, I think we can adjourn. Anything else to come before the board or deputy administrators? Do you have anything? All right. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.